Chapter 1081. He looked at a page in the stack of documents in shock. How dare Mo Chunxian lay his hands on my father? Ma Chunyi looked at the information that Mo Chunxian had bewitched the emperor of the Empire of Qin. No wonder his father's attitude towards him had been getting colder and colder over the years. Ma Chunyi had thought that his father was too disappointed in him, because he could not make a breakthrough in his cultivation. Coupled with Mo Chunxian's strong rise, this was the reason. But now it seemed that all this was probably because Mo Chunxian had bewitched the emperor of the Empire of Qin. According to the information, Mo Chunxian had bewitched the emperor of the Empire of Qin by increasing the dosage little by little. Therefore, the effect was not obvious at the beginning. Only when the other party made important decisions, he would be confused and unconsciously lean towards Mo Chunxian. Ma Chunyi thought that over the years, many things and power in his hands had been handed over to Mo Chunxian bit by bit. The latter had the upper hand in front of him, and was unscrupulously arrogant in front of him. And he could only retreat because his cultivation had not been able to make a breakthrough, and the dragon qi in his body was constantly decreasing. It was said that he had been silent for the past few years, and many ministers and forces who followed him were extremely disappointed because of this. But who would have thought that Ma Chunyi did not want to be silent at all? But what could he do when his father was not willing to let him do things? Mo Chunxian's strength and power improved step by step, and he had all the advantages. So in a few years he had completely caught up with him, who had been the crown prince for more than 10 years. Ma Chunyi had also been disheartened by his father's favoritism, but now it seemed that all this was because Mo Chunxian had bewitched the emperor. And when this drug was taken for a certain time and amount, the person would completely lose his mind and become a puppet of the drug maker. Bastard! How dare he? Ma Chunyi looked at the records in his hands and was furious. At this moment, the blue veins on the forehead of such a gentle and elegant person were all exposed. Ma Chunyi clenched his fists tightly. He had been the crown prince since he was a child, and was doted on by the sage emperor of the Empire of Qin. The relationship between father and son was very good. During the years when Mo Chunxian rose to power, his father became more and more estranged from him. It was not that Ma Chunyi was not sad. Now that he knew that it was all Mo Chunxian's doing, he wanted to eat him alive. However, he soon had a new question in his heart. Father is powerful, and there are countless masters in the palace. He also has a saint to look after him. Mo Chunxian drugged him. It's too dangerous. Why didn't he drug me? Ma Chunyi was, after all, the heir to the throne of the Empire of Qin. His meticulousness was incomparable to that of an ordinary person. After a moment of excitement, he immediately realized that there was something illogical about this. Anyway, from Mo Chunxian's point of view, it was much safer and more convenient to attack him than to attack his father. As long as he got rid of him and controlled him, who else in the royal family of the Empire of Qin would be his match? At that time, even if imperial father didn't want to make him the crown prince, it would be impossible. Why did he use such a dangerous and easily discovered method? Because the purpose of the person behind him is your father. Luo Qingtong looked indifferent. She knew that the person behind Mo Chunxian was the heavenly doctor. Chapter 1082. She first used Mo Chunxian to deal with Ma Chunyi. After Mo Chunxian succeeded, she would directly abolish Mo Chunxian through the emperor of the Empire of Qin that she had already controlled. At that time, the Empire of Qin would be under her control. She would be the queen behind the scenes. As for Mo Chunxian, he was just a tool she chose. It was ridiculous that he didn't know it, and thought that he was the one who benefited. The person behind the scenes? Hearing Luo Qingtong's words, Ma Chunyi was shocked. However, he soon realized what was going on. Yes, Mo Chunxian's rise was too strange, and the loss of the dragon qi in his body was also very strange. In addition, now that he had the information of the bewitching drug, Ma Chunyi had already believed Luo Qingtong's words. There must be someone behind Mo Chunxian, and the purpose of the other party was the throne of the Empire of Qin. Mo Chunxian was just a pawn, and a tool of the other party. Thinking of this, Ma Chunyi's face suddenly became very serious. Yes, The person behind the scenes. Luo Qingtong's face was indifferent. Do you remember what happened before the Great Chu? Luo Qingtong said. At that time, Prince Ning attacked Empress Dowager Yanxi. There was another person behind him. Ma Qingyi paid attention to Luo Qingtong because of the royal family of the Great Chu. How could he not know about the royal family of the Great Chu? Now hearing Luo Qingtong's words, he immediately reacted. You mean the person behind Mo Chunxian and the person behind Prince Ning of the Great Chu are the same person? He asked. Yes. You should have heard of her name, Heavenly Doctor. Luo Qingtong looked at Ma Qingyi and said, I'll give you the information, together with the antidote of the bewitching drug. You can take it to the Emperor of the Empire of Qin. In addition, I can tell you that the Heavenly Doctor has an inseparable relationship with the royal family of the Great Yong. You can check it in this direction. I'm also looking forward to the real identity of this Heavenly Doctor. The smile on Luo Qingtong's lips rose slightly. In the slight curve, there was a bit of evil, a bit of frivolity, and a bit of cunning. She had received the news from Yen and the others. The bloodline power of this generation of the royal family of the Great Yong was almost all. Only the emperor of the Great Yong dynasty's royal family could not be compared with the royal family of the other royal dynasties. And Luo's Yongs. And the royal family of the emperor of the Great Yong dynasty, with her with the emperor with her with the emperor, had used. So, but Luo Qingtong already knew what was going on. If she hadn't guessed wrongly, it wasn't that the bloodline power of those royal family members didn't exist, but it had all been absorbed by Feng Yuan, right? That Heavenly Doctor and Feng Yuan definitely had a great relationship. Maybe it was her herself. Luo Qingtong was looking forward to the investigation of this matter by the royal family of the Empire of Qin. At that time, when Feng Yuan was dragged out, the scene would definitely be very beautiful. Her plot to seize the throne of the Empire of Qin failed, and she was dealt with. Luo Qingtong felt that if she heard this news, she would have to eat 2 more bowls of rice. With the temperament of the Emperor of the Empire of Qin, if he knew that Feng Yuan was involved with the person who plotted to kill him, even if the Great Yong royal family protected Feng Yuan, she would still be in big trouble, not to mention the price that the Great Yong royal family would have to pay. Chapter 1083. Ma Qingyi took the document given by Luo Qingtong and went back. According to the list given in the document, he caught all the spies arranged by Mo Chunxian in the imperial palace of the Empire of Qin. Ma Qingyi knew that Mo Chunxian couldn't turn the tables this time, so he didn't hide anything when he took action. In fact, he couldn't hide it. Most of the spies arranged by Mo Chunxian were close to the Emperor of the Empire of Qin. Thinking about it, only these people could make the Emperor of the Empire of Qin fall into the trap without any warning. And the dosage of the drug was so little that no one could detect it. If it weren't for the document given to him by Luo Qingtong, Ma Qingyi wouldn't have believed the consequences. He was afraid that when they came to their senses, the whole imperial palace of the Empire of Qin would have changed hands. According to the document given by Luo Qingtong, the Emperor of the Empire of Qin had been taking the drug for nearly 5 years. After a few more months, he would completely lose his mind and become a dog under the feet of the other party. It was ridiculous that Mo Chunxian thought that the other party did all these for him, but he didn't know that the other party almost controlled the whole imperial palace of the Empire of Qin with his help. Once the Emperor of the Empire of Qin was controlled by the other party, the imperial palace of the Empire of Qin would suffer a disaster. And the imperial palace of the Empire of Qin would completely change hands and be controlled by the other party. How terrible was this? Ma Qingyi was frightened as he caught all the spies and tied them up in front of the Emperor of the Empire of Qin. The Emperor of Qin was furious because of Ma Qingyi's unscrupulous actions and thought that he was trying to usurp the throne. However, before he could do anything, Ma Qingyi had already appeared in front of him with a group of people. Ma Qingyi told him everything and put the detailed information in front of the Emperor of the Empire of Qin. Father, these are the results of my investigation. Please have a look. In addition, I've also checked all these people. They are all under the influence of the drug, and have completely lost their minds and been controlled by the other party. That's why they drugged you. The emperor of the Empire of Qin was so strict that ordinary people couldn't get close to him. As for the people serving him, they were almost all his trusted aides and men of sacrifice. Under such circumstances, the other party wanted to poison him without him knowing it. Therefore, he could only make a move on his trusted aides and turn them into puppets first. When Mo Chenai caught them, he had already used the method taught by Luo Qingtong to check them. These people were all under the influence of the drug, and they couldn't be saved. Even if they were saved by force, they would become complete idiots. The emperor of the Empire of Qin looked at the information and evidence in front of him furiously. This was especially so when the guards of the imperial palace found bags of medicine that had been used to drug the great Qin's sage emperor. The fury on his face reached its peak. Bang! He flicked his sleeves heavily, and the energy in his body exploded. In an instant, those who were caught and kneeling on the ground without any change in their expressions and didn't know fear were all shattered into pieces. He shouted angrily in the rain of broken bodies and blood. Send my order immediately to the Wu imperial mansion. Catch that unfilial son and bring him to me. Also, take away his title of King Wu from now on. Lock him up. Chapter 1084. The Saint Emperor of the Empire of Qin was furious to the extreme. At the same time, Mo Chunxian didn't know what had happened in Lord Wu's mansion. Because of the matter with Luo Qingtong, he had suffered extremely heavy losses. He had lost more than half of his forces and connections. But fortunately, he still had some trump cards in his hand that had not been exposed. And his strength was also very strong, which could finally solve some of his urgent needs. And his biggest trump card was the Saint Emperor of the Empire of Qin, in the imperial palace of the Empire of Qin. Ma Chenyi, you destroyed my forces and connections. Do you really think I can't deal with you in this way? And you Luo Qingtong. Bitch, I'll let you know my power sooner or later. Hiss. Mo Chunxian swore and pulled the wound on his face. That day at the elders' conference, he slapped himself nearly 1,000 times. Even if he was strong, his handsome and gloomy face was swollen like a pig's head. He had not fully recovered after 2 days of recuperation in the mansion. He was so angry that he couldn't maintain his usual coldness and shrewdness at all. Not to mention that he had suffered such heavy losses in the past few days. Just as he secretly gritted his teeth and prepared to ask the Saint Emperor of the Empire of Qin to give Ma Chenyi a difficult task to teach him a lesson and destroy some of his forces and connections, the guard outside suddenly ran in. No, something bad happened. Your Highness. The guard ran to Mo Chunxian out of breath. His face was full of horror. Before he could speak, Mo Chunxian, who was already in a bad mood, directly raised his foot and kicked him out with a bang. How dare you? Who allowed you to yell in front of me? Mo Chunxian's face was extremely cold. He thought that these guards didn't have any respect for him, because they saw that his forces were greatly damaged. The guard was kicked to the ground and couldn't speak for a long time. Before Mo Chunxian asked his men to drag him out, there was a sudden cry outside. Seal them all! Following this angry shout, a group of people instantly swept in from the outside door like a whirlwind. Everywhere he passed, there was chaos and chaos. The people of the martial imperial manor immediately went into hiding, not daring to resist. Because those people were wearing the uniform of the personal guards of the Emperor of the Empire of Qin. The fact that they had moved out meant that they were acting on the sage emperor's orders. How dare you? What's wrong with you guys? How dare you trespass into my martial imperial manor? Hearing the sound in the room, Mo Chunxian immediately flew out of his main courtyard. When he saw the group of personal guards barging around outside, he immediately shouted angrily. He never thought that the fact that he had drugged the sage emperor had been exposed. In his view, if the other party was unable to notice it even after 5 years, there was no way the other party would be able to do so now. Moreover, as more and more people gathered around the Saint Emperor, it would be even easier for him to hide the fact that he had drugged the Saint Emperor. That heavenly doctor's methods were extraordinary. In the past, she was still trembling with fear. Now it seemed that no one could see through the medicine she gave. So it was definitely not the sage emperor who wanted to deal with him. Mo Chenxian wondered if Ma Chenyi had said something in front of the emperor, which made the emperor so angry that the emperor came to arrest him. Thinking of how he had framed Ma Chenyi for finding sorcery for Luo Qingtong, Mo Chenxuan's face turned cold. Chapter 1085. He even dared to bring this up in front of the emperor. However, he did not expect that the emperor would side with him. As long as he was willing, not only would he not be able to get justice, he would also be severely reprimanded by the emperor. He would like to see how unbelievable the emperor would be then. Thinking of this, Mo Chenxian sneered and walked towards the guards, ready to reprimand them. However, before he could get close, the leader of the imperial guards, an expert of the sage state, glanced at him indifferently and waved his hand. "Take him down." Bang! In an instant, Mo Chenxian was pressed to the ground by a group of bodyguards. His head smashed hard on the bluestone tiles below, making a dull thud. Mo Chenxuan's body was stepped on, and he was instantly stunned. "How dare you? I'm King Wu of the Empire of Qin. How dare you treat me like this? Let me go." He struggled and shouted angrily. These people must have been instructed by Ma Chenyi to deal with him. What a bastard! When he was in front of the emperor, he would definitely reprimand them. However, as soon as he spoke, the words of the Imperial Guard's commander made his mind go blank. King Wu of the Empire of Qin? Huh. The Imperial Guard's commander looked at him with disdain. "I'm afraid you won't have the chance in this lifetime. Mo Chenxian, you colluded with others to assassinate the emperor. The emperor has ordered to arrest you and take away the position of King Wu. If you want to scold us for being presumptuous, you can continue to do so later, because we will be even more presumptuous in the future." Haha. The Imperial Guard's commander suddenly burst into laughter. He waved his hand, and a group of people dragged Mo Chenxian like a dead dog. These Imperial Guards served the emperor, and they all heard the emperor's order today. Mo Chenxian would never have the chance to turn the tables. Naturally, they would not be polite to him. Moreover, everyone in the Empire of Qin knew that Mo Chenxian and Ma Chenyi were not on good terms. Now that King Wu had been deposed, the heir to the throne of the Empire of Qin was the crown prince. Under such circumstances, they would naturally try their best to trample on Ma Chenyi and the Saint Emperor. Mo Chenxian was dragged along by these imperial guards, and his heart was numb to the extreme. What's going on? How did things turn out like this? His face was filled with anger and disbelief. Shouldn't Ma Chenyi go to the Empire of Qin's sage emperor to complain? Then, he would rush over and use the effect of the bewitching drug to make his imperial father favor him and punish Ma Chenyi? How did he end up losing the title of martial king? And what was the meaning of colluding with others to harm the sage emperor? Could it be that the things she had done to imperial father had been exposed? Impossible. Mo Chenxian thought and shook his head hard. That bewitching drug was not an ordinary drug. It was colorless and odorless, but it was extremely effective. He only used a little bit at a time, so it was impossible to be discovered. Even if they wanted to find out, they wouldn't have waited until now. But what if it was this? Mo Chenxian thought and his heart trembled. When he thought about the consequences of murdering the sage emperor, his legs went weak. Not to mention the fact that the imperial guards were dragging him around like a dog. Even if he had to stand up, he wouldn't be able to walk. Mo Chenxuan's confidence came from his control over the sage emperor and the dragon energy in his body. Now, although he had the dragon energy in his body, once the news of murdering the sage emperor came out, how could he still have the chance to become the heir to the throne? It was almost a dead end. Chapter 1086. When Mo Chenxian was captured, a group of people arrived at the holy capital of the Empire of Qin. Is this the holy capital of the Empire of Qin? It doesn't look as prosperous as our subordinate cities. The group of people entered the city. A man with an aquiline nose who was at the front said coldly. His words were full of disdain and arrogance. Haha, Elder Xia must be joking. The holy capital of the Empire of Qin is only the capital city of the Empire of Qin's holy dynasty. The Empire of Qin's holy dynasty occupies less than a quarter of the eastern domain in the true Spill continent. How can its capital city be compared with our celestial palace's subordinate cities? It should be compared with the Blackfield's main city, the 3 islands and 7 lands of the southern domain, the wild city of the western wilderness, and the Sea Emperor's dragon court of the northern domain. This is the sacred capital of the great Qin Empire. It is already an honor for Elder to be able to set foot here. The people around Elder Xie all agreed one after another. His words were full of flattery. Haha. Elder Xie was in a very good mood when he heard this. He looked at the people around him with admiration and laughed heartily as he walked forward. Let's go. Let's go find Deacon Shun. We need her to take us to the western wilderness this time. We just came out of the hidden world, so there won't be any problems. The group of people immediately walked towards the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin, Seoul Institute Master's residence. Su Deheng and Shin Shiyue were sitting beside Su Jinyue's bed with a gloomy face. The human-faced ghost sores on the latter's body had just broken out. She was screaming and rolling on the ground crazily, tearing her hair and scratching her body. Her appearance was miserable and painful. Su Deheng and Shin Shiyue felt sorry for her. They couldn't wait to kill Luo Qingtong in order to alleviate his daughter's pain. That little bitch. Shin Shiyue's face was extremely cold. She originally thought that Luo Qingtong would definitely suffer at the elders' assembly, but she didn't expect that she would use such a heaven-defying method to turn the situation around. Not only that, but Mo Chunxian and the people of the Elders Guild were also in big trouble. As a result, they didn't have a single reliable helper. Fortunately, she had just received a message from the sect. Elder Xie and the others were about to arrive. Once she begged the other party to speak to Blackfield and let Luo Qingtong cure her daughter's illness, she would definitely make that Luo Qingtong suffer greatly. She didn't care who caused these human-faced ghost sores on her daughter's body. She would put it all on Luo Qingtong's account. Didn't that evil Dr. Gui Tong think highly of her? If he crippled her and let her experience more pain than Jinyue, the evil Dr. Ghost, I would also be in great pain, right? Humph. Shin Shiyue's face turned cold as she laughed. The noble and graceful face of a noble woman was extremely cold and stern at this moment. At this moment, there was a noise outside the courtyard. Deacon Shun, seeing a group of people appear in the courtyard, Shin Shiyue and Su Deheng hurriedly got up, opened the door and walked out. Elder Xie, you are here. Shin Shiyue greeted him excitedly. Su Deheng also hurriedly saluted him. Elder Xie's aura was extremely tyrannical. Su Deheng was already an expert who was close to surpassing the sage realm. But in front of Elder Xie, he couldn't help but feel suffocated. This was the shock caused by the pressure of the expert. Before Su Deheng, only the transcendence of the Empire of Qin's holy dynasty gave him this kind of feeling. Chapter 1087. Su Deheng only knew that the hidden world was different from the rest of the true Spill continent. The sects there were extremely powerful, but he didn't think that they would be strong to such a degree. Celestial Palace could casually send out an outer court elder, and they were all at the transcendent saint realm. Then, what kind of strength did the inner court deacons and elders have? There was no need to mention the total faction masters. And Celestial Palace wasn't even the strongest sect in the hidden world. No wonder there was a saying among those who knew of the hidden world's existence. If one wasn't a saint, they couldn't enter the hidden world. Unless it was a grand annual selection, no one below the saint realm had the qualifications to enter the hidden world. They didn't even know where the entrance was. And in the entire true Spill continent, how many people could enter the saint realm? Su Deheng himself had been stuck between the sage realm and beyond the sage realm. He had been unable to break through the barrier for a long time. The elder Xie arrogantly nodded. His eyes swept over Su Deheng, completely ignoring him. To the sects of the hidden world, the saint realm powerhouses of the true Spill continent weren't worth their attention. The genius disciples of their sects were far stronger than this. Weak. He was too weak. If this person wasn't Shin Shiyue's husband, and if Shin Shiyue wasn't the great elder of the outer court, he wouldn't even bother looking at him. Elder Xie. After the elder Xie arrived, Shin Shiyue immediately spoke of her request. Elder Xie, I only have one daughter. Please help me. In the future, I will definitely repay you. Shin Shuyue wiped her tears. Evil Dr. Go's pupil? What kind of powerful alchemist could there be in the true Spill continent? The elder Xia coldly snorted, his face full of disdain. He raised his hand and pointed to a disciple beside him, saying, Lu Tong, you go and treat her. Yes. The disciple named Lu Tong nodded and directly pushed open the door. He walked in front of Su Jinyue and began to treat her. However, when he touched Su Jinyue, all the human-faced ghost sores on her body seemed to be awakened. They opened their mouths wide and bit him with sharp screams. Su Jinyue screamed sharply. The awakening of those human-faced ghost sores was as terrible as being devoured by thousands of ghosts. The intense pain caused her to scream uncontrollably. Lu Tong was trying his best to control the human-faced ghost sores in her body. It wasn't as if he had never seen such a dark poison formed from yin qi before. However, what he encountered this time was exceptionally strange. The yin qi in the other party's body seemed to be inexhaustible. Lu Tong tried his best to use his medical skills to expel the yin qi from the man's body. He hoped that the human-faced ghost sores would calm down and then remove them one by one. However, the human-faced ghost sores were not affected at all. Instead, they became more and more aggressive. In the end, he had no choice but to retreat. Elder Xia, I can't. This poison is too strange. I can't cure it. He was sweating profusely as he walked to Elder Xia. What? You're the most outstanding disciple of the Outer Sex Pill Hall. You're actually unable to cure this poison? Elder Xia's face was stunned. He remembered that he had just said that evil Dr. Go's pupil was nothing special, and that he didn't need to personally deal with him. His tone was full of contempt. Now he had slapped himself in the face. For a time, his face was a bit ugly. Chapter 1088. Shin Shuyue stepped forward and said, Elder Xia, you don't know, that evil Dr. Gui Tong is a bit strange. She is already an alchemist at such a young age, and her alchemy skills are unfathomable. No one knows what level she has reached. But we heard that when Empress Dowager Yan Shi of the great Chu royal family was looking for a husband, there was a bloodline pill at the wedding, and it was extraordinary. Otherwise, how could she make the Blackfield Mingzun think so highly of her? I didn't make it clear to you before, so you misunderstood. Shin Shuyue's words gave Elder Xia a way out of the embarrassing situation. Oh, it turns out that this evil Dr. Gui Tong is so powerful. His face softened a bit, and he nodded and said, since she is the person that the Blackfield Mingzun thinks highly of, she is naturally different. As if the person who despised Luo Qingtong just now was not him. In this regard, Shen Shuyue and others did not even change their faces, and they all smiled and agreed. Then Shin Shuyue said carefully, then Elder Xia. She meant that she asked him to help her. Elder Xia naturally understood what she meant. Seeing that the other party had spoken well and saved his face, he nodded proudly and said, sure. When we go to the Western Wilderness, I will find time to go to the Black Field to meet Mingzun and plead for you. When Elder Xia said this, he thought that Shin Shuyue and others would be grateful, but she said awkwardly, she wanted to let evil Dr. Gui Tong make a move first, and then deal with Luo Qingtong. What's more, this time they made a move to deal with Luo Qingtong. Although the first one was Mo Chunxian, the two of them were not involved from the beginning to the end. But who didn't know the role they played in it? If Luo Qingtong told this to evil Dr. Gui Tong. Thinking like this, Shin Shuyue suddenly became anxious. She asked, Elder Xia, can you hurry up? Shall we go to the Black Field today and invite that evil Dr. Ghost Eye over? Humph. Hearing this, Elder Xia's face fell. What was wrong with Shin Shuyue? So tactless? It was enough that he had agreed to her request, but she still wanted a yard after taking an inch. Today, putting aside the fact that he might not be able to meet Mingzun today, he had just arrived here today. How could he possibly be tired from the long journey because of her? As Elder Xia thought of this, he suddenly felt very uneasy. Seeing that his complexion was not good, the disciples around him suddenly stood up and said to Shin Shuyue, Deacon Shin, it's better to be content with what you have. Elder Xia, you've worked hard today. Let's talk about your matter later. Since they had already said this much, Su Deheng and Shen Shuyue naturally couldn't continue. But thinking that it was very likely that Luo Qingtong had already passed the news to evil Dr. Gui Tong. If they didn't invite evil Dr. Gui Tong over as soon as possible, it was very likely that after the latter received the news, he wouldn't come to treat them anymore. Thinking like this, the two of them suddenly felt anxious. At this moment, a mournful voice rang out. Then, a faint cold air came out of Yu Wenma's room. It was the innate cold disease in his body acting up. Hearing the screams, Elder Xie fiercely frowned and turned to leave, in case Shen Shuyue and her husband asked him to do something again. Chapter 1089. Squeak squeak. A weak but sharp sound rang out. Then, a black shadow suddenly scuttled out from Elder Xie's sleeve and ran towards Yu Wenma's room. Gold-seeking hamster. Seeing the black shadow scuttling out, Elder Xie's expression suddenly changed, and he hastily chased after it. However, the gold-seeking hamster's speed was extremely fast. In a flash, it had already scuttled into Yu Wenma's room. The door of the room opened a crack, just enough for the gold-seeking hamster to pass through. Gold-seeking hamster? Hearing Elder Xie's exclamation, Shen Shuyue's expression also froze. She knew about the gold-seeking hamster. It was the treasure of their celestial palace. The gold-seeking hamster's sense of smell was extremely sensitive, especially when it came to finding treasures. It was simply like a natural radar, the kind that could naturally play back. As long as a treasure was in a place before, it would leave behind a long and dense scent. After that, even if the treasure was no longer there, it would still be able to follow it. Now that it suddenly ran into Yu Wenma's room, could it be that it discovered some treasure on his body? Thinking of this, Shen Shuyue hurriedly pulled Su Deheng into the room. Elder Xie and the rest were already inside. Yu Wenma was lying on the bed, his expression incomparably painful. The cold air in his body would flare up every 2 hours. At that time, the cold air would invade his body, corroding his bones and devouring his heart. It was truly miserable. Every time this happened, his heart would be filled with regret. Why did he despise Luo Qingtong so much in the beginning? Why did he allow his own mother and sister to treat her badly? Why did he allow Tianyu's royal family to ignore her? If it wasn't for this, he would still be the Yu Wenma, who enjoyed the reputation of being a genius in the Empire of Qin's Sacred Academy. He would still be the proud student of the Soul Academy's great teacher. He would still be the genius expert who could possibly reach the peak in the future. It was laughable that for the peak, he despised Luo Qingtong in every possible way, thinking that she wasn't worthy of him. But only now did he realize that without her, he was nothing. He was even worse than a cripple. So what if he was a strong expert? In the end, he still couldn't withstand the onslaught of the innate cold. Thinking of this, Yu Wenma felt pain and regret in his heart. He knew that Luo Qingtong had deliberately left his strength intact. She wanted him to experience the feeling of being powerless despite having the strength to take revenge on him for despising her and the Luo family because of his strength in the past. Yu Wenmo rolled on the bed in pain. The black shadow stopped in front of his chest. Creak creak. It was a golden mouse the size of a palm. Its fur was very smooth, soft, and round. There was even a tuft of white hair on its head. Creak creak. It was clawing at Yu Wenma's chest. Its 4 little claws were very happy, and its round little butt was shaking. Elder Xie rushed forward and picked it up. Then he looked at Yu Wenma's chest. Seeing that there was a faint trace of a pendant, she immediately raised her eyebrows and asked, "Was there something hanging on his body?" Shen Shuyue looked at Su Deheng. "There was a pendant," Su Deheng hurriedly said. It was said to be his and Luo Qingtong's engagement token. Luo Qingtong? Elder Xie's eyes turned. "Bring me to where she lives." Okay. Chapter 1090. Especially Shen Shuyue. She knew the peculiarity of the gold-seeking hamster. Naturally, she knew why Elder Xie went to Luo Qingtong's place. She didn't expect that little bitch to have a treasure that could cause the gold-seeking hamster to react. She was secretly happy, but then she felt some regret. They didn't know about this before. Otherwise, that thing wouldn't have fallen into Luo Qingtong's hands. The gold-seeking hamster's ability was strange. Ordinary treasures couldn't enter its eyes. Since it reacted to the pendant that Yuanma once wore, it meant that the pendant was extraordinary. She didn't know what level of treasure it was. It was really a pity. On the other hand, Elder Xia was very happy. He brought the gold-seeking hamster out because of the incident in the far west wilderness. He didn't expect to have such a pleasant surprise here. Something that could attract the gold-seeking hamster's attention must be a treasure of the Saint Realm or above. Moreover, it wasn't an ordinary treasure. Thinking of this, he suddenly smiled happily. The group arrived at Luo Qingtong's place. Elder Xia, this is where Luo Qingtong lives. Su Deheng and Elder Xia stood not far from the courtyard of the Heavenly Demon Group's encampment. They raised their hands and pointed at the courtyard in front of them. It's here. Elder Xia looked at the courtyard and wanted to say something. Suddenly, the gold-seeking hamster in his arms broke free from his hand. Squeak squeak, the little gold-colored hamster with white fur scurried into the courtyard in front of them. Its movements were fierce and fast. It was even faster than when it went to find Yuanma. In the courtyard, Luo Qingtong was sitting in the pavilion and talking to Little Pig. This map of the Saint Monarch's tomb is only a part of the map. It's quite interesting. She fiddled with the jade thumb ring in her hand. After activating the repair eye ability, Luo Qingtong could easily see that the small map in the center of the jade thumb ring was incomplete. For maps had to be stacked together to reveal the true appearance of the map. This method was really novel. If Luo Qingtong didn't have this eye ability, she probably wouldn't know the mystery behind it. From the beginning of the Saint Monarch's tomb to the small map in the middle, every step was exquisitely made and concealed. It was really exciting. The tomb of a Saint Realm powerhouse wasn't easy to enter. The things inside wasn't easy to take. I don't know who the other party is, but this method is cunning. Little Pig listened to her words, his lips twitched. That's a Saint Realm powerhouse was too deceptive. It could already imagine the other people who had gotten the map running in excitedly, only to be cheated so miserably that they couldn't even cry out for their mothers. Luo Qingtong chuckled as she listened. Squeak squeak squeak. A soft and sharp voice rang out. Ants was. What is this? Luo Qingtong instinctively raised her hand to block. Paji. Something soft instantly stuck to her hand. Squeak squeak squeak. A small and soft mouse was hugging one of her fingers, squeaking as it moved its four limbs in her hand. Its little butt was swaying from side to side. It was so cute. A hamster. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and looked at the little thing in her hand. She picked it up. Chapter 1091. Why did such a little thing run over to her place? Moreover, how did it enter the holy court of the Empire of Qin? There were actually hamsters as pets in this other world? Why hadn't she heard of it before? Luo Qingtong was just thinking when she suddenly heard Little Pig exclaim in surprise. Gold-seeking hamster? It looked at the little golden-furred hamster in Luo Qingtong's hand that was intimately and unceasingly rubbing against Luo Qingtong's body, and the corners of its mouth twitched as it spoke. This is a gold-seeking hamster. As it spoke, it bounced with its four hooves and jumped in front of the little hamster. Strange, why would it appear here? Little Pig used its little hooves to slap the little hamster in Luo Qingtong's hand. The latter's round and furry body was slapped here and there like a rubber ball, and it instantly became angry. It squeaked as it gave up its love of rubbing against Luo Qingtong and turned to glare angrily at Little Pig. What are you looking at? You don't like your Grandpa Pig? Little Pig looked at the little gold hamster's angry little eyes, and he immediately extended his little hooves to slap it. Speak quickly, where did you come from? His true body was an existence that crushed all beasts, and such a little hamster actually dared to be disrespectful to him. Little Pig's little hooves slapped even more cheerfully. Squeak squeak squeak. That little gold hamster became even more furious. Luo Qingtong watched the interaction between the pig and hamster from the side, and she couldn't help but laugh for a while. When she saw the little gold hamster being slapped by Little Pig to the point its fur stood on end, yet it was unable to struggle free from her hand to fight it with its life on the line, she instantly laughed and swatted away Little Pig's little hooves. Alright, stop bullying it. What's this gold-seeking hamster? Luo Qingtong raised her hand to tease the little gold hamster, and the latter seemed to be especially affectionate towards her. When it saw her finger move over, it instantly squeaked as it raised its pair of little claws and moved over. Little Pig was just about to say something when suddenly, the little gold mouse's body violently twitched at this moment. Luo Qingtong withdrew her fingers and looked at the little golden mouse struggling violently in her hand. Its little head was shaking left and right, and it looked like it was in great pain. As it cried out, it looked at Luo Qingtong with its big and cute eyes. The pair of round eyes that occupied almost half of its face were filled with attachment and reluctance to part with Luo Qingtong. But at the same time, there seemed to be some kind of force pulling it away. Luo Qingtong looked at it and frowned slightly. At this moment, Little Pig suddenly barked. Not good. Looking at the little golden mouse's pained appearance, it seemed to be struggling to break free from Luo Qingtong's hand and escape. It suddenly shouted, "Stop it! Don't let it run away!" Little Pig's expression was grave. This gold-seeking hamster was raised by someone else, and it's being urged to go back right now. At that time, the existence of the 9 layers exquisite sword and the life and death sword in your body will be exposed. As a fellow beast, Little Pig naturally knew the ability of the gold-seeking hamster. It was an automatic treasure-seeking tool. If this gold-seeking hamster was wild, then so be it. But it was obviously raised by someone. Now that it was being urged to go back, it would definitely expose the fact that Luo Qingtong had many treasures here. Chapter 1092. It was said that a dog's nose was the most sensitive. In fact, this gold-seeking hamster's nose was the most sensitive. However, this gold-seeking hamster was very rare, and ordinary people wouldn't have it. Moreover, they couldn't afford to raise it. Where did it come from? Little Pig didn't have time to think too much, and hurriedly had Luo Qingtong stop it. Originally, when Luo Qingtong heard that this little golden hamster was being raised by someone else, she was prepared to let it go. She wouldn't go so far as to snatch someone else's pet. However, when she heard Little Pig's words, her expression suddenly froze. The 9-layer exquisite pagoda and the life and death sword were her biggest secrets. At the same time, they were also her 2 trump cards. They absolutely couldn't be known by others. Although Tian Mingzi had said that there wouldn't be any enemies here, Luo Qingtong didn't want these 2 treasures to be exposed and attract unnecessary trouble. She immediately stretched out her hand. The instant the little golden hamster was about to leave her palm, she pressed it back. The young girl's eyes lit up. Layers and layers of blood-red color spread out from the inside. In an instant she activated an eye technique. Under the gaze of Luo Qingtong's eyes, an array brand instantly appeared on the little golden hamster's body. It was a beast-taming array. Moreover, it was very profound. It couldn't be set up unless one was a spirit array master in the sage realm or above. At this moment, a spiritual power fluctuation was constantly emitted from the array brand, exerting pressure on the little golden hamster's soul, forcing it to listen to the order and immediately return. The little golden hamster obviously didn't want to leave Luo Qingtong. It was a gold-seeking hamster, and naturally yearned for places with treasures. The higher the level of the treasure, the more it liked it. The life and death sword and the 9-layer exquisite pagoda that Luo Qingtong possessed were both rare treasures. Especially the 9-layer exquisite pagoda, which was also the demon-subduing pagoda. The benefits to demonic beasts were obvious. Of course, the little golden hamster didn't want to leave Luo Qingtong. However, that mental energy fluctuation was constantly urging it, causing it to feel extremely painful. At this moment, Luo Qingtong raised her hand and pointed at the core of the array imprint. The mental power in her mind surged out. In an instant, before that mental power fluctuation could react, the array imprint was broken. Creak creak, the little golden mouse was freed in an instant. It jumped onto Luo Qingtong's body and circled around her. It was so happy. From time to time, it would rub its little head against Luo Qingtong and look at her with sparkling eyes, as if it was looking at a big treasure. Outside the courtyard of the Heavenly Demon Group's encampment, Elder Xie's mental power that was controlling the gold-seeking hamster to return was suddenly cut off. His expression instantly changed. This gold-seeking hamster was the treasure of the celestial palace. This time, he had brought it out for great use. Nothing must go wrong. Go. Let's go in. That gold-seeking hamster must be with Luo Qingtong. He didn't know what level of treasure the other party had on her that allowed the gold-seeking hamster to break free from his mental power control. If he let the gold-seeking hamster escape, he would be skinned alive when he returned to the sect. Moreover, Luo Qingtong had such a powerful treasure on her. He must get it. Thinking so, Elder Xia immediately lifted his leg and was about to rush towards the courtyard of the Heavenly Demon Group's encampment. However, just as he made his move, Chapter 1093. Elder Xia, no. This is the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. Seeing that Elder Xia was going to make a move on Luo Qingtong, the two of them were wild with joy. However, they couldn't let Elder Xia make a move here. Elder Xia, this Luo Qingtong is highly valued by the Grand Supreme Dean. The two of them said, if you make a move here, you will definitely alarm him. When he activates the defensive formation of the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin, even if you are a Saint Transcendence, you won't be able to do anything in a short time. What if that Luo Qingtong takes the opportunity to run away? Hearing their words, Elder Xia stopped in his tracks. Then what do you two mean? Elder Xia didn't think that Luo Qingtong could escape from his hands. But it was better to be safe than sorry. What's more, now that the gold-seeking hamster had broken free, it must be by her side. If that little girl saw his intention, she might use the gold-seeking hamster to threaten him. At that time, he would really have to hold back. Thinking like this, he suddenly looked at the two of them and said, in our opinion, we might as well. The two of them said their plan. After discovering that Luo Qingtong had a treasure on her, Su Deheng and Shen Qiuyue planned how to consign Luo Qingtong to eternal damnation. Not only her, but also the Grand Supreme Dean and the others who had been shielding her. Therefore, they stopped Elder Xia and didn't let him make a move here. Otherwise, relying on the defensive formation of the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin, not to mention what would happen to Luo Qingtong, the Grand Supreme Dean, and the others would definitely be fine. Not to mention that after the matter became big, it might alarm the Saint Transcendence in the Imperial Palace of the Empire of Qin. At that time, the Grand Supreme Dean and the others would be even more fine. How could Su Deheng and Shen Qiuyue allow such a thing to happen? It was rare for such a good weapon like Elder Xia to come to their door. They must make good use of it. If you want to blame someone, blame Luo Qingtong for being too lucky. He actually had such a treasure in his hands. Humph. They should be thanking her for courting death. As the two of them thought so, they looked at each other with a gloomy expression. Then they laughed coldly together. Good. We'll do as you say. After listening to the two's suggestions, Elder Xia nodded his head and left. In the courtyard, after they stopped the little gold mouse, Luo Qingtong looked at Little Pig and asked, everything will be fine after we stop it. She furrowed her brows and looked at the little golden mouse that was squatting on her shoulder intimately. It completely treated her as a super treasure and loved her passionately, constantly rubbing against her body to sell its cuteness. Needless to say, her appearance was quite lovable. Luo Qingtong thought. She raised her hand and flicked the little guy's forehead. Then, she watched it fall to the ground with a thud. It took him a while to get up dizzily. The corner of Little Pig's mouth twitched when he saw her actions. This action is so familiar, isn't it? When I tried to act cute and wanted to follow Luo Qingtong, I was treated like this. Thinking of this, Little Pig resentfully glanced at Luo Qingtong. Is this guy a woman or not? Why is he so cold-hearted? Normally, when people see such a cute little animal, shouldn't they take extra care of it? Why does this woman like to bully them? However, Little Pig didn't know that there was a kind of cuteness that made people want to bully them whenever they saw them. It should be fine. Chapter 1094. It guessed that the gold-seeking hamster must have accidentally run to Luo Qingtong's place. In that case, the other party didn't summon it back, so naturally, they wouldn't know what happened to Luo Qingtong. But you'd better put it into the 9-layered exquisite pagoda to avoid being tracked by its aura. Also, Little Pig said to her, make a fake treasure aura and bury it somewhere, then let people find it later. Lure them away. Otherwise, they will definitely look for this little thing all over the world. Little Pig glanced at the golden-furred hamster squatting on Luo Qingtong's shoulder. The gold-seeking hamster was a rare treasure beast that ordinary people couldn't afford to raise. Moreover, it was very rare. Now that it disappeared, they would definitely search for it. If someone saw it rushing into Luo Qingtong's courtyard, it would be troublesome. Okay. Luo Qingtong nodded. She also thought so. Just in case, it was better to make a fake treasure to lure them away. Luo Qingtong was very familiar with this matter. She casually took out a trashy ring and covered it with a layer of extremely dense energy waves. This energy fluctuation was the combination of the life and death yin-yang sword and the 9 netherworld phoenix ring. It was guaranteed to be able to fool people. Luo Qingtong took the useless ring and went out. At this moment, a group of uninvited guests came to the imperial palace of the Empire of Qin. Your Majesty, in the imperial study, the sage emperor of the Empire of Qin was flipping through all kinds of things copied from Emo Qinshuan's residence. Emo Qinshuan's ambition was obvious. He even made the dragon robe for his coronation in advance. The sage emperor of the Empire of Qin was so angry that his whole body trembled. He flipped the table and ordered the people in the imperial study to teach Emo Qinshuan a lesson. They must find out who the ambitious heavenly doctor behind him was. Ma Chenyi sat on the seat below, listening to the sage emperor's furious outburst. At this moment, an urgent shout came from outside. Then, a guard of the imperial house suddenly walked in from outside and knelt down in the imperial study. Your Majesty, Elder Xie of Celestial Palace requests an audience. Your Majesty, Elder Xie is a saint. The sage emperor of the Empire of Qin's expression changed when he heard the guard's words. The saint that the other party spoke of was not the saint stage powerhouse that ordinary people spoke of. Instead, he was a transcendent saint. Quickly invite him in. Although he didn't know why the outer sect elder of Celestial Palace wanted to see him, the sacred emperor of the Empire of Qin wouldn't neglect him. As the supreme being of the sacred dynasty, he naturally knew about the hidden world. He also knew that Celestial Palace's influence was not weak. What's more, the person who came was a saint, who was on par with the saint transcendence of the royal family of the Empire of Qin. Immediately, he hurriedly asked someone to invite him in. On the other hand, Ma Chenyi's elegant and handsome face instantly darkened when he heard that someone from Celestial Palace had come to visit. If he remembered correctly, Su Deheng's wife was from Celestial Palace? He heard that she was an outer sect deacon, so she was very respected in the 4 great sacred dynasties. In the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin, even the Grand Supreme Dean had to show her some respect. Su Deheng's achievements today were mostly thanks to her. Could it be that someone from Celestial Palace came to the Empire of Qin at this time to support her? Thinking of this, Ma Chenyi's original intention to leave when he heard that someone was coming was gone. Chapter 1095. Ma Chenyi sat down again and looked at the group of people who came in expressionlessly. Sure enough, Su Deheng and Xin Shuyue were among them. The two of them accompanied Elder Xie. When they walked into the imperial study, they saw Emo Chenyi sitting on the left at a glance and immediately smiled. Your Highness. After greeting the Holy Emperor, the two looked at Ma Chenyi sarcastically, especially Su Deheng, who looked at Ma Chenyi with even more sarcasm. The other side helped Luo Qingtong to deal with them. Although the other side really wanted to deal with Emo Qinshuan, it was a fact that he helped Luo Qingtong. This time, they wanted to make him fall to the bottom. The two's eyes made Ma Chenyi's heart sink. At this moment, Elder Xie's voice sounded. Your Majesty, I came here this time to ask the Holy Emperor of the Empire of Qin to make a decision for us. He tapped his fingers on the table in front of him and said coldly, I came to the holy capital of the Empire of Qin this time, and will leave after a few days. But, he raised his head coldly and said, I went to the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin to see Deacon Shun. a student of the Holy Academy, when I wasn't paying attention, lured away the precious beast of the celestial palace, the gold-seeking hamster. The gold-seeking hamster still had the treasures we got along the way. Because the gold-seeking hamster liked those treasures very much, we didn't take them off but let it play with them. Now that the gold-seeking hamster and the treasures are missing, I wanted to break into the Holy Academy and take back the treasures. But I thought that this is the territory of the Empire of Qin, and I can't go too far. So I came to ask the Holy Emperor to give us a perfect justice and explanation. As soon as Elder Xie said this, Ma Qianye's face changed completely. The other side really came to make trouble, and the one who was looking for trouble was Luo Qingtong. Thinking of the way Su Deheng and Shen Chuyue looked at him, Ma Qianye's heart suddenly thumped. How could he not know that the student of the Saint Academy that they were talking about was Luo Qingtong? With this thought, he suddenly stood up and said to the sage emperor of the Empire of Qin, "Father, you must investigate this matter thoroughly. It's impossible for Luo Qingtong to do these things." He cupped his hands and said anxiously, "Father, Su Deheng and Shen Chuyue have always been at odds with Luo Qingtong because of Su Jinyue and Yu Wenma. Previously, when Imperial younger brother falsely accused Luo Qingtong of cheating at the Elders' Assembly, the two of them were behind it. Father, you must not listen to their words. It's not good for her." As soon as Ma Qianyi said this, Su Deheng and Shen Chuyue sneered. "Your Highness is really interesting. Elder Xie hasn't said who that person is. You can't wait to be so sure that it's Luo Qingtong. You can see what kind of person she is." "What's more," Su Deheng sneered, "it's fine if you say that we slandered Luo Qingtong. Elder Xie is a dignified saint. Why would he slander Luo Qingtong? If it wasn't true, who would make things difficult for a little student?" He deliberately emphasized the words little student. Hearing this, the sage emperor of the Empire of Qin nodded and said, "That's right. Saint Xie really doesn't have to slander a student. What kind of status did a saint have? How could he make things difficult for a student for no reason? Not to mention telling such a lie." Chapter 1096. The Saint Emperor of the Empire of Qin thought so and disagreed with Ma Qianye's words. He didn't know that it was impossible to avenge Su Deheng and Shen Chuyue, but it was entirely possible to avenge the treasure that even the gold-seeking hamster was excited about. "Come," the Saint Emperor of the Empire of Qin said in a deep voice. "Go to the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin and capture the student named Luo Qingtong. Ask her to hand over the treasure of the Celestial Palace and the gold-seeking hamster." "Father," the voice of the Saint Emperor of the Empire of Qin sounded. Ma Qianye's voice suddenly sounded. The Saint Emperor of the Empire of Qin didn't even pay attention to him. Ma Qianyi had no choice but to sit there and wait anxiously. He only hoped that Su Deheng and the others were talking nonsense. In this way, after Luo Qingtong was captured and brought to the palace, he could still exonerate her. At that time, with her identity as the Princess of Great Chu, she would be fine. That's right. And the Grand Dean. He must know about this matter, and let him come with the Grand Tutor to support Luo Qingtong. Thinking so, Ma Qianyi immediately winked at the people around him. Immediately, some of his trusted aides left the room and went to look for the Grand Principal and the others. Su Deheng and Shen Chuyue had been paying attention to Ma Qianye's movements. Seeing these movements around him, they suddenly sneered. The smile on their lips was very gloomy and proud. Luo Qingtong was definitely doomed this time. The more the Grand Dean and the others stood up for her, the better. At that time, they could catch all of them in one fell swoop and avenge their previous hatred. Let them help Luo Qingtong. At that time, none of them would be able to escape. The group of people was very calm and composed. Luo Qingtong went back to the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin after burying the fake things. In the courtyard, Yu Qingwei was waiting for Luo Qingtong. Su Xiaoxiao and the others were chatting with her. Ever since the incident at the Elder Conference, the relationship between the Qingwei group and the Heavenly Demon group had been completely reconciled. Su Xiaoxiao and the others were grateful to Yu Qingwei for bringing the Qingwei group to help. Although they weren't able to help in the end, They didn't have any prejudice against them. The group of people got along very well. As for Yu Qingwei, Su Xiaoxiao and the others quite liked her. This was especially true for Su Xiaoxiao. As a member of the pharmaceutical department, she liked to interact with Yu Qingwei. The two of them didn't take the usual path when it came to alchemy, so they had a lot to talk about when they were together. But today, Yu Qingwei almost didn't speak. Not only that, she kept anxiously asking Luo Qingtong where she was, asking her to come out because she had something urgent to tell her. Boss has gone out. Su Xiaoxiao and the others looked at her and said, seeing Yu Qingwei's restless appearance, they seemed to have sensed something and immediately said, Senior Sister Qingwei, why are you looking for boss? If there's anything, you can also tell us. The group said, That's right. Senior Sister Qingwei. Is there something that you don't want to talk about? Just say it. That's right. Boss just went out, and no one knows when she'll be back. If there's something urgent, you can tell us first. Yu Qingwei looked at them and didn't know what to say. She just received news from Ma Chenyi. The latter thought about it and decided to let Luo Qingtong leave first. The Celestial Palace's people came aggressively and were probably prepared. Even if Luo Qingtong really didn't take their treasure, they wouldn't let it go. Chapter 1097. He had Yu Qingwei send a message to Luo Qingtong in order to not attract attention. After all, in the eyes of many people, even if the two of them had let go of their former enmity, their relationship wouldn't be that good. It was just a pretense. If the Grand Principal sent a message, or Ma Chenyi sent it himself, Luo Qingtong would probably be stopped before she could leave the Empire of Qin's holy courtyard. However, who would have thought that Luo Qingtong wasn't in the Empire of Qin's holy courtyard at this time? Unable to tell Luo Qingtong this news, Yu Qingwei couldn't sit still. At this time, Luo Qingtong returned. Senior Sister Qingwei? She saw Yu Qingwei surrounded by Su Xiaoxiao and the others in the pavilion, and wanted to ask her what was going on. The latter also anxiously stood up and wanted to tell her what happened in the Empire of Qin's imperial palace. However, at this time, a clamor suddenly sounded from outside. Luo Qingtong? Where's Luo Qingtong? Who's Luo Qingtong? Yu Qingwei's expression suddenly changed when she heard the series of shouts. Damn it, the Sage Emperor sent people. She hurriedly said to Luo Qingtong, Junior Sister Luo, quickly leave. The Celestial Palace's people found the Sage Emperor and said you took their treasure. They're going to capture you now. The situation was urgent, so Yu Qingwei couldn't explain to Luo Qingtong what the Celestial Palace was and why the other party went to the Sage Emperor and said she took their treasure. However, Luo Qingtong immediately understood. The gold-seeking hamster's master came. She narrowed her eyes and said to Little Pig in her mind. Apart from this reason, she couldn't think of any other reason why the other party said she took their treasure. Did they know she had a treasure in her hands? Perhaps the gold-seeking hamster's strange behavior was caused by them. They were nearby at that time. However, the Celestial Palace. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. She suddenly remembered that Su Deheng's wife was an external deacon of a mysterious sect. Could it be the Celestial Palace? As she thought of this, she immediately connected the dots. Just as Yu Qingwei's voice fell, a group of people barged in from outside. Miss Yu is wrong. She's not going anywhere today. After hearing Yu Qingwei's words clearly, the commander of the internal guards who had been ordered to capture Luo Qingtong suddenly gestured towards Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong, by order of the Sage Emperor, you are invited to the Imperial Palace of the Empire of Qin. Please don't make things difficult for us. When the commander of the internal guards left the Imperial Palace, he was warned by Ma Chenyi's men to not disrespect Luo Qingtong. Mo Chenxian was already deposed. If there were no accidents, Ma Chenyi would be the future ruler of the Empire of Qin. Under such circumstances, the commander of the internal guards was still very willing to do the crown prince a favor. Therefore, he didn't immediately attack Luo Qingtong. However, he didn't know that Ma Chenyi's words had actually saved their lives. If they dared to attack Luo Qingtong, they wouldn't end up any better than those people from the Sacred Academy's law enforcement team. Okay, I'll go with you. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes at them, then nodded and walked out with them. Boss! Su Xiaoxiao and the others only just recovered from their shock and almost chased after them. However, this time was different from when they went to the Elders' Guild. The soldiers of the Imperial Guards didn't allow them to follow. What should we do? Chapter 1098. Bastards! What the hell is that celestial palace? Why are they targeting boss? Is there something wrong with their brains? Our boss wants to steal their treasure? How shameless! Yuan, who is so angry that he punches the stone pillar next to him. Boss is the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. What treasure doesn't she have? That underworld venerable in the Black Field can't wait to give her the entire Black Field. Moreover, even if the Black Field doesn't have a treasure, boss won't even bother to steal or snatch it. These people are too much. This is a false accusation. It is a false accusation, Yu Qingwei says. She bites her lip. In the end, she didn't make it in time. She doesn't know if anything will happen to Luo Qingtong. Celestial Palace is a very powerful sect from the hidden world. The one who came this time is their outer sect elder, a saint transcendence expert. He said that Qingtong took his treasure. No one would doubt it. And the Celestial Palace therein is the sect where Su Diheng's wife, Shen Shuyue, is in. Yuan Hu and the rest instantly understand after hearing Yu Qingwei's words. F***CK. If that's the case, wouldn't it be a piece of cake for them to frame boss? No. Boss is in danger. The group of people immediately react. If that person from Celestial Palace was really called by Shen Shuyue to deal with Luo Qingtong, then this time, saying that Luo Qingtong took their treasure is completely a conspiracy. No matter whether Luo Qingtong admits it or not, they won't let her off. Not good. The group of people instantly panics, especially when they think that the outer sect elder from Celestial Palace is actually a saint transcendence expert. They panic even more. Quick! Let's go to the Black Field and inform the people in the Black Field that boss is in danger. As they speak, they stomp their feet and are about to run out. It's useless. Yu Qingwei looked at them and shook her head. Even if Luo Qingtong and the Black Field's evil Dr. Ghost I have a good relationship, the latter may not be able to protect her. That's a transcendent saint we're talking about. Unless we can invite someone like Ming Zun from the Black Field, only then would we be able to fight against him. But why would such a person fight against a transcendent saint for Luo Qingtong? Even if evil Dr. Gui Tong personally begs him, I'm afraid it's still impossible. Moreover, behind that elder Xie is the Celestial Palace. Yu Qingwei analyzed seriously with Su Xiaoxiao and the others. She wasn't trying to dampen their enthusiasm and confidence. But it was true. Ordinary people simply wouldn't go against a transcendent saint, or even the sect behind the other party, for a student like Luo Qingtong. In truth, the sage emperor might have known that Luo Qingtong was innocent. But between a student and a transcendent saint, or even the Celestial Palace, who was more important? Naturally, it was the latter. That's why the sage emperor sent people to capture Luo Qingtong, after listening to Elder Xie's side of the story. No, you're wrong. Su Xiaoxiao shook off Yu Qingwei's hand. She looked at her seriously and said word by word. Senior Sister Qingwei, you don't know what will happen if something happens to our boss. Not to mention Elder Xie, Celestial Palace, even your entire the Empire of Qin Dynasty, will have to use blood to wash away the anger of the Black Field. Or it could be said that the anger of the Black Field's Ming Zun. Those who had seen how much Yi Qianxian cared about Luo Qingtong wouldn't doubt that the Black Field's Ming Zun would go to that extent for her. If something happened to Luo Qingtong, the world would be buried with her. Chapter 1099. Yu Qingwei was startled by her words, but before she could react, Su Xiaoxiao had already waved her hand away. Seeing them leave without looking back, Yu Qingwei's mind kept replaying Su Xiaoxiao's words. If something happened to Luo Qingtong, the entire the Empire of Qin Holy Dynasty and Celestial Palace would have to use blood to wash away the Black Field's anger? How much confidence did she have to be able to say something like that? And Su Xiaoxiao and the others were clearly only people from the Empire of Tianyu. How could they say something like that? What's more, Luo Qingtong was only a young girl from a marquee mansion from a low-level country. Even if Yu Qingwei never judged people based on their appearance or status, she couldn't deny the fact that Luo Qingtong came from a lowly background. The only thing Luo Qingtong could rely on was that she knew evil Dr. Gui Tong and had a relationship with her. But having a relationship didn't mean they would protect her unconditionally. Knowing her didn't mean the Black Field would protect her. Did Su Xiaoxiao and the others think Luo Qingtong was that evil Dr. Gui Tong? Only that evil Dr. Gui Tong would be able to obtain the full protection of the Black Field, and the Black Field's underworld venerate in exchange for the destruction of the Celestial Palace and the Empire of Qin Holy Dynasty. Thinking up to here, Yu Qingwei suddenly froze. Luo Qingtong, evil Dr. Gui Tong? Information about both sides suddenly flashed through her mind uncontrollably. Luo Qingtong came from a low-level country, Dongli Country. Evil Dr. Gui Tong rose from a Blackfield branch city in Dongli Country. Evil Dr. Gui Tong's medical skills were unparalleled. His alchemy skills were superb. And his alchemy skills were top-notch. And when the Qingwei group was dealing with the Heavenly Demon group, a mysterious honorary lead pharmacist suddenly appeared. He obtained the approval of the Grand Master and the Grand Principal of the pharmacist group, defeated her in a challenge, and refined a real pill elixir. The elixir aura contained within the elixir liquid was incomparably dense, and it was no different from a real elixir. Thinking of this, Yu Qingwei immediately sucked in a deep breath. The things that he had never thought of before were instantly dispelled by Su Xiaoxiao's words. Luo Qingtong was the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. This was the evil Dr. Ghost pupil who had caused the Black Field's deep revered to fall in love with her and protect her wholeheartedly. He had even said that no one in the entire True Spill continent would be able to harm her. That was why evil Dr. Gui Tong was so protective of the Luo clan. That was why he destroyed Tianyu's royal family for the Luo clan. It was only when the Qingwei group was dealing with the Heavenly Demon group that the honorary lead disciple of the Mystic Pharmacy suddenly appeared. If it was the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, then it was no wonder that the Medicine Institute's great teacher and grand principal would make her the honorary chief without any hesitation. Not to mention, no one could surpass her position in the Medicine Institute. How could he surpass it? The other party was already an alchemist. Moreover, his alchemy skills had reached the acme of perfection. Even those old monsters did not dare to say that they could compare to him. As Yu Qingwei thought of this, she realized just how great this matter was. If Luo Qingtong really was the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, then the Celestial Palace and the Empire of Qin's Holy Dynasty would be in deep trouble. Thinking of the anger of the Black Field's deep revered, she fiercely shivered. The Empire of Qin's Imperial Palace. Luo Qingtong was accompanied by the Imperial Palace's internal guards who had come to invite her into the grand discussion hall. In order to express the importance of this matter, the Empire of Qin's Holy Emperor had changed the location of the interrogation from the Imperial Study to the Grand Discussion Hall. The Imperial Palace's inner courtyard was heavily guarded. Wherever they passed, sabers, spears, swords, and halberds would shoot out cold light in all directions. Chapter 1100. Luo Qingtong, you didn't think you'd have such a day, did you? The two men's expressions were cold as they mouthed Luo Qingtong. Their murderous intent towards Luo Qingtong was evident as they opened and closed their mouths. Today, they wanted Luo Qingtong to never be able to walk out of this door. As for Elder Xie, a trace of amazement flashed through his eyes as he looked at the stunning young girl who walked in. He didn't think that this student, whom Su Deheng and Shin Chuyue hated to the bone, would be so stunning. If she could obediently hand over the treasures on her body, it wasn't like he couldn't keep her and play with her by his side. Presumably, she would be very happy to do so. After all, this was an honor that many people couldn't even ask for. Seeing his gaze, the little pig in Luo Qingtong's arms snorted and said, "Hey woman, that Elder Xie seems to have taken a fancy to you. Oh my God." With a face full of wrinkles, he still wants to learn from others and eat young grass. Hearing its words, Luo Qingtong glanced indifferently at Elder Xie and didn't say anything. On the other side, Ma Chenyi had already stood up. Qingtong, Grand Tutor Jiang, and the Grand Principal stood beside him. It was obvious that the two of them had been called over by Ma Chenyi. Luo Qingtong had just learned about Ma Chenyi's painstaking efforts from Yu Qingwei and immediately nodded towards him. It was said that true hearts were revealed in adversity. It was indeed so. When the Celestial Palace made things difficult for her, not only did Ma Chenyi not retreat, but he did his best to help her. It could be said that he didn't let her down for her previous help. She really didn't misjudge him. Qingtong. Ma Chenyi's heart was anxious. He didn't think that Luo Qingtong would appear here. Didn't he ask Yu Qingwei to inform her to leave? Could it be that something went wrong? When the Grand Principal saw Luo Qingtong's arrival, he frowned fiercely and transmitted a message to her. Luo girl, this matter is not easy to handle. That elder Xia has the strength of a saint transcendence, and is considered a powerhouse among the ordinary saint transcendents. I think you'd better reveal your identity so that they won't dare to touch you. His expression was dignified. To the Grand Principal naturally hoped that Luo Qingtong's identity wouldn't be exposed so quickly. This way, they would have one more trump card in the Saint Court. But this situation was different. The Celestial Palace was be considered to be a big sect in the hidden world. As elders at SSSB, TSSSS, SSSST, SSST, SSSSS have a S. After all, he wasn't a true saint transcendence. His was only slightly above the saint realms. In addition, he had been injured these years, which delayed his advancement. If nothing unexpected happened, his would have been. There was absolutely no possibility of a breakthrough. Under such circumstances, even if he tried his best, he wouldn't be able to stop the other party. Luo Qingtong was invited by him to the Empire of Qin's Saint Court. If something happened here, not to mention Ming Zun's anger, even he would feel sorry for Luo Qingtong. No need, Grand Principal. You don't have to say any more. It's too late. Chapter 1101. If the people from Celestial Palace had come specifically to avenge Su Deheng and Shen Qiuyue, it would be fine. If she revealed her identity, they would absolutely not dare to make a move. But they had come for the treasures on her body. Even if she revealed her identity, the other party would definitely force her to hand over the little golden mouse. But that gold-seeking mouse had already known the secret of the treasures on her body. In any case, Luo Qingtong would not return it to the people from Celestial Palace. Otherwise, under the investigation of the secret method, the other party would definitely discover the secret of the life and death yin-yang sword and the 9-layered exquisite pagoda. Under such circumstances, the enmity between Luo Qingtong and Elder Xia was set. Rather than letting them get the little golden mouse and leave in fear, which would attract the powerful people from Celestial Palace, it was better to continue to hide her identity and deal with their moves as they came. The best result would be to make Elder Xia and his party stay here completely, so that the people from Celestial Palace would not know what had happened. In this way, the secret of the treasures on her body would not be exposed. Luo Qingtong thought so and narrowed her eyes. She already had a plan in mind, but the specific implementation was still a little difficult. But now, she had no other choice. Luo Qingtong. The Grand Dean did not understand Luo Qingtong's words, and did not know what she meant by, "It's too late." When he wanted to ask for more details, Shen Qiuyue on the other side could not help but launch an attack. Previously, she had let this woman, who had dealt with her daughter and humiliated her husband, escape. This time, she would like to see how she could escape. Shen Qiuyue's eyes glinted coldly. She suddenly stood up with a stern shout. "You abducted my sex-treasured beast and stole my sex treasures. Quickly hand over all those things, and return my sex-treasured beast. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude to you." Su Deheng was also here. While pretending to comfort Shen Qiuyue, he said to Luo Qingtong with a strong sense of righteousness, "Luo Qingtong, I know you have a grudge with my family. You hate my disciple Yuanma for abandoning you. Jinyue is not sensible. Because she loves Mo. She offended you many times. But in any case, You can't do such a disgraceful thing to the Celestial Academy when my wife returns home. He raised his voice. Gold-seeking mouse is the sex-treasured beast of the Celestial Palace. Not everyone can get it. Even if you get it, you can't afford it. What's more, there are all kinds of treasures from Celestial Palace. The Empire of, he said Grand Dean to the Celestial Academy, and Holy Dynasty of the Empire Dynasty of the Empire. Once you provoke the Celestial Palace, I don't know how many lives you have to pay for it. Holy Emperor, please judge clearly. Su Deheng suddenly turned around and bowed to the Holy Emperor of the Empire of Qin, who was sitting at the top of the hall. Every word he said was closely related to the fact that Luo Qingtong had a grudge against them, so she deliberately lured away the gold-seeking mouse and caused the Celestial Palace's treasures to be stolen. His words were reasonable, and the people in the hall began to believe him. Even Ma Chenyi couldn't help but glance at Luo Qingtong. He wondered if Su Deheng had some conspiracy that Luo Qingtong found out, so she deliberately lured away the gold-seeking mouse to vent her anger. But he didn't expect that the gold-seeking mouse was the sex-treasured beast of the Celestial Palace, and there were treasures of the Celestial Palace on it. So no. Chapter 1102. Let's not talk about whether or not Luo Qingtong was such a careless person. She was discovered by Su Deheng and the others when she lured away the gold-seeking hamster. Let's say that the gold-seeking hamster and the sex treasures were stolen together. Given the grudge between Su Deheng and Luo Qingtong, as well as Elder Xia's strength, how could they not snatch those things back on the spot? Thinking like this, Ma Chenyi's heart suddenly trembled. He immediately realized that it wasn't that Elder Xia and the others didn't want to snatch it, but that they couldn't. It was true that the gold-seeking hamster had gone missing, and it was most likely on Luo Qingtong's body. However, those stolen treasures were most likely all fake. The gold-seeking hamster had gone missing because it had discovered the treasures on Luo Qingtong's body. Elder Xia and the others had deliberately come to complain. They wanted to borrow Imperial Father's hand to force Luo Qingtong to take out the treasures on her body. After all, the Holy Court of the Empire of Qin had a protective formation. Luo Qingtong was among them. If Elder Xia and the others made a move, and the Grand Dean defended Luo Qingtong, there was still a possibility that Luo Qingtong would escape. However, it was different in this imperial palace. Luo Qingtong had no one to rely on. As Ma Chenyi thought this, his heart suddenly couldn't help but sink. Luo Qingtong was in danger. Luo Qingtong, what do you have to say? After Su Deheng finished speaking, the Holy Emperor of the Empire of Qin, who was sitting on the main seat, raised his head and looked at the young girl standing on the other side of the main hall. That brilliant temperament made him faintly knit his brows when he saw it. It was no wonder that his year was so worried about such a peerless beauty. He heard that the other party's strength in the Holy Court of the Empire of Qin wasn't weak, and her talent was astonishing. However, all of this was nothing compared to the Celestial Palace. Paying too much attention to her was not a good thing. The Holy Emperor of the Empire of Qin didn't know that his bewitching medicine had been cured and Mo Qinshuan's plot had been exposed because of Luo Qingtong. He looked at Luo Qingtong with some displeasure and asked with a cold and indifferent face, "If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext." Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and said indifferently, "Since Su Deheng and the rest are so certain, then let them show the evidence. Otherwise, I believe that the sage emperor will uphold justice for me." How could she not see the displeasure in the eyes of the Holy Emperor of the Empire of Qin? But she didn't care. She did not want to rely on the people of the great Qin sacred dynasty to escape. Elder Xia's strength was too strong, and there was the Celestial Palace behind him. The people of the Empire of Qin would never want to go against him. Ma Chenyi and the Grand Dean were protecting her. Even if she revealed her identity as the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, no one would believe it. They would only think that they said it deliberately to protect her. So this time, Luo Qingtong could only rely on herself. Of course we have evidence. However, Luo Qingtong, if we show the evidence, you and your accomplice will be punished severely and be at our disposal. Shen Shuyue said and glanced coldly at the Grand Dean beside Luo Qingtong. Obviously, the accomplice she was talking about was the Grand Dean. That's right. If it weren't for someone helping you, how could you, a little student, lure away the gold-seeking hamsters and take away so many treasures of Elder Xie? Grand Dean, although I know that you are very indulgent and protective of Luo Qingtong, your way of doing things is really disappointing. Chapter 1103. Su Deheng said with a pained expression. Luo Qingtong looked at him and Shen Shuyue, then thought of Su Jinyue. She suddenly felt that this family was full of drama. You guys. The Grand Supreme Dean was even more furious. He was indeed against Su Deheng, becoming the great teacher of the Soul Institute. He felt that Su Deheng's strength and ability weren't enough for this role. He didn't have any selfish motives. But he didn't expect that he would be viciously blackened today. No wonder they came to the Saint Emperor to complain. He was afraid that they had already made up their mind to not only deal with Luo Qingtong, but also deal with him, right? What a good plan to kill two birds with one stone. The Grand Supreme Dean was so angry that he stomped his feet. He wished he could rush over and kill Su Deheng and the rest, then pull Luo Qingtong away. But in front of the Saint Emperor, he didn't have the right to be presumptuous. Moreover, Su Deheng and the rest had Elder Xie, a transcendent sage, by their side. Just as the Grand Supreme Dean was panting in anger, Luo Qingtong's voice rang out. Okay, as long as you can find evidence, I will plead guilty to the Grand Supreme Dean and let you punish me. But if you can't produce evidence, you have to let us go. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes and looked at Su Deheng and the rest. Okay. Shen Shuyue immediately agreed. She sneered at Luo Qingtong, her heart filled with pride and coldness. She was waiting for Luo Qingtong to say this. At that time, she would get rid of her and the Grand Supreme Dean. This woman probably didn't know, right? The gold-seeking hamster was their celestial palace's precious beast. Naturally, there was a way to raise and control it. Previously, they didn't know what kind of treasure Luo Qingtong had on her that made the gold-seeking hamster so excited that it broke free from Elder Xie's spiritual control. But now that both sides were within reach of each other, no matter how tightly Luo Qingtong hid herself, as long as Elder Xie released his spiritual power, the gold-seeking hamster would obediently listen to his orders. When he crawled out of Luo Qingtong's body, the scene would be wonderful. At that time, Luo Qingtong would not be able to defend herself. With that thought in mind, she looked at Elder Xie proudly and said, Elder, please make your move. Elder, please take action. Su Deheng, who was beside her, also said respectfully and excitedly. Without the Grand Principal, the Elders Association would be disbanded. When he returned to the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin, he could easily become the principal with the help of Shen Shuyue. At that time, they would properly deal with the Crown Prince of the Empire of Qin. The two of them sneered. That Elder Xie slowly raised his head and looked at Luo Qingtong. With an unfathomable expression, he said, You really don't want to plead guilty? He had the demeanor of an expert. As long as you hand over the gold-seeking hamster and those treasures, this elder won't look into your crime of theft. I'll even train you by my side. How about it? He looked at Luo Qingtong's devastatingly beautiful face and said covetously. The young girl's face was absolutely beautiful, and her temperament was bewitching. She had an awe-inspiring domineering aura and a calm grace. She was truly a top grade. He couldn't bear to punish this kind of girl. As long as she was willing to hand over the treasures in her hands, and the gold-seeking hamster, he promised to treat her well. As for the grudges between Su Deheng and Shen Shuyue and Luo Qingtong, what did it have to do with him? As soon as Elder Xie's words left his mouth, Luo Qingtong smiled. Elder Xie wants to train me by your side. Chapter 1104. Unfortunately, I'd rather see Elder Xie being taken in and trained by someone. Why don't we raise the stakes? As Luo Qingtong spoke, the smile on her lips was cold and evil as she looked in Elder Xie's direction. In an instant the latter was furious. Bitch, I gave you face, but you don't want it. Elder Xie's face was full of anger. The training he was talking about was naturally not an ordinary training. Luo Qingtong used his own words to reply to him, instantly making him think of that kind of unbearable scene, and his face darkened. Since you won't shed tears until you see the coffin, then I'll fulfill your wish. He originally thought that the other party was not bad-looking. If she was willing to submit to him, the taste of pleasure under his body would definitely be very good. But he didn't think that the other party would be so unappreciative. Since that was the case, there was no need for him to have any tender feelings for the fairer sex. Once the other party was convicted, wouldn't she still fall into his hands? At that time, he would definitely let her know the consequences of what she had just said. As Elder Xie thought of this, he suddenly snorted coldly. He raised his hand and began to use the Celestial Palace's secret technique to control the gold-seeking hamsters. That was the beast-taming technique that the Celestial Palace had specially invited the most powerful array master in the hidden world to create for the gold-seeking hamsters in their sect. Under the activation of the beast-taming brand, as long as he poured his mental strength into it, he would be able to control the other party. This was also specially drawn to prevent the gold-seeking hamsters from being unwilling to return after finding an excellent treasure, or from wanting to escape. The control brand was divided into two types, the main array and the sub-array. When Elder Xie came out, he drew the sub-array in the palm of his hand. The method to control the main array was still in the sect, and was controlled by the sect leader. Therefore, when the gold-seeking hamsters broke free from his mental strength control, he didn't think too much about it. After all, the control of the sub-array was not as strong as the main array, so it wasn't impossible for it to break free. But that would definitely happen when the gold-seeking hamsters found a huge treasure. That kind of treasure would definitely be able to increase the strength of the Celestial Palace sect by more than 10 times. Therefore, Elder Xie could not wait to deal with Luo Qingtong. He did not even care about the dignity of a transcendent saint and an outer elder of Celestial Palace. All for the sake of obtaining the treasures on the girl's body. It was definitely a rare treasure that could allow his strength to soar and contribute greatly to the sect. Just thinking about it made Elder Xie's body tremble with excitement. Quick, he pointed out with his finger. Gold-seeking hamster, come out. In order to prevent the gold-seeking hamster from being attracted by the aura of the treasure on Luo Qingtong's body, and once again resisting his summoning and control like before, Elder Xie exerted a lot of effort in pointing this finger. Almost all of the power in his body was poured into that point, and in an instant, it entered the subformation. However, it was quiet all around. No gold-seeking hamster jumped out of Luo Qingtong's body. Creak creak. In Luo Qingtong's sea of consciousness, the 9-layered exquisite pagoda, the little gold-seeking hamster was happily jumping around in the space of the first floor. It looked like it wasn't affected in the slightest. Creak creak. It raised its hand to fiddle with the huge cocoon of light that Snowball had transformed into. After the latter moved a bit, it hurriedly ran away with its 4 paws. It looked like it was having a lot of fun. Chapter 1105. How is this possible? He repeatedly raised his hand in disbelief. Quick! 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 Gold-seeking hamster, come out! He pointed his finger one after another, using all his strength, but there was still no movement on Luo Qingtong's body. Elder Xie was as tired as a dog, half leaning and half leaning on the armrest of the chair behind him, gasping for breath. Even with his strength, he had almost exhausted all of his mental strength by activating so many of the formations in succession. He was so angry that he almost cut off his own hand. How is this possible? His face was ferocious as he supported himself on the armrest behind him, glaring at Luo Qingtong and saying, "The beast-controlling array given by the sect is absolutely not a problem. Slut, did you do something to it?" Elder Xie didn't believe that he couldn't summon the gold-seeking hamster. That sect's treasure beast must be on Luo Qingtong's body. There was absolutely no doubt about it. But how could he not summon it? Compared to getting the treasure, Elder Xie was more worried that he would lose the gold-seeking hamster. Everyone knew the difference between a fish and a fisherman. As long as there was that gold-seeking hamster, they could get the best treasure. But without that gold-seeking hamster, then even the best treasure couldn't make up for this loss. Slut, what did you do? Elder Xie looked at Luo Qingtong with a murderous gaze. At this time, he couldn't care less about being attracted by her beauty. If there was a problem with that gold-seeking hamster, then even if he got the treasure on Luo Qingtong's body, he would still die when he returned to the sect. Elder Xie, you're joking. Luo Qingtong looked at him indifferently and raised her eyebrows. Didn't you say that you have evidence? So you want to prove that I took your treasure and that gold-seeking hamster? Now that you can't take out the evidence, you say that I did something. If I could do something in front of a transcendent saint like you, then now, it wouldn't be your turn to interrogate me. Luo Qingtong said coldly. Her words caused the people around her to nod slightly. They could clearly see that Luo Qingtong didn't do anything. On the other hand, that Elder Xie clearly said that he would show evidence. In the end, after putting on an act, he said that Luo Qingtong had done something. That was why he couldn't produce any evidence. Was this *King joke? The young girl was only a martial emperor, yet she was able to play tricks in front of him. A transcendent saint. How could it make him so tired that he was sweating profusely, gasping for breath when he spoke, and his tongue was hanging out like a dog? This was simply an insult to their intelligence. This was too much of an act. He was really treating them like fools. In fact, everyone present could more or less guess that Elder Xie and the others had deliberately come to find trouble with Luo Qingtong. But to do it so obviously, he really did not put them in his eyes. This was especially true for the sage emperor of the Empire of Qin. His face instantly turned as black as coal. He was afraid of the Celestial Palace, so he was willing to give Elder Xie and the others face. But this didn't mean that he was afraid of them. Elder Xie was just an outer sect elder of the Celestial Palace. It wasn't like the imperial family of the Empire of Qin didn't have any transcendent saints. Chapter 1106. He suppressed the anger in his heart and said to Elder Xie, "Thank you, Saint." He gritted his teeth and reminded him word by word. "She's just a student in the martial emperor realm. So, you said she did something to you. Are you trying to say that you, a saint, can't even compare to a student in the martial emperor realm? She's not even the strongest in the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. Luo Qingtong is just a new student in the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. It's really amazing to have such a cultivation. But, you're *King Saint. You said she did something to you in front of so many people. Can't you come up with a better excuse?" The veins on the Saint Emperor of the Empire of Qin's forehead were bulging. Elder Xie immediately snapped out of his daze, after being reminded by Su Chen. But he was very sullen in his heart. The gold-seeking hamster is definitely in Luo Qingtong's possession. There's no doubt about it. He saw the gold-seeking hamster run into Luo Qingtong's courtyard with his own eyes. Damn it! He shouldn't have listened to Su Deheng's words and complained to the Saint Emperor, because he was afraid that Luo Qingtong would run away. He wanted to borrow the Saint Emperor of the Empire of Qin's hand to kill her. Now he didn't want to borrow the Saint Emperor's hand to kill her. His old face was about to be completely lost. More importantly, it was the gold-seeking hamster. Luo Qingtong. Elder Xie took a deep breath and looked at the beautiful girl in front of him. "I don't know what method you used to get the gold-seeking hamster out of my control. But that gold-seeking hamster is the precious beast of the Celestial Palace. You must hand it over. And the treasure on you, you must also hand it over. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving this door today." At this moment, Elder Xie had completely given up the idea of finding excuses. So what if he wanted to rob her? With his strength and the influence of the Celestial Palace, he did not believe that anyone could stop him. As Elder Xie spoke, he released his suppressive aura in an instant. "Thank you, Elder. Don't go overboard." Ma Chenyi, Grand Supreme Dean, and the others were already overjoyed when Elder Xie's spell failed. Luo Qingtong was finally all right. However, they did not expect the other party to be so shameless. "You can't slander Luo Qingtong. So now you want to rob her?" These two sentences didn't even need to be pretentious. They were simply rude and unreasonable, revealing the nature of a bandit. The group of people were filled with righteous indignation. Ma Chunyi immediately stood in front of Luo Qingtong and said to the sage emperor of the Empire of Qin, "Imperial Father, you also saw it. The people from the Celestial Palace are deliberately looking for trouble with Luo Qingtong. They are using you. Aren't you angry? Moreover, Luo Qingtong is the princess of Great Chu. Grand Tutor can testify." Imperial Father, you can also use the national seal to sense it. She has the power of Great Chu. Imperial Father, you can't let anything happen to her. As soon as Ma Chunyi said this, the sage emperor of the Empire of Qin's expression changed slightly. This Luo Qingtong is the princess of Great Chu? Of course, he knew that there was a princess of Great Chu. He even sent Grand Tutor Jiang to the inferior country, where she came from, to send gifts. However, he did not pay special attention to her name. So this Luo Qingtong was the newly conferred princess of Great Chu? Ma Chunyi would not joke about this kind of thing. Moreover, the sage emperor of the Empire of Qin could also distinguish through the power of the country's fate. Chapter 1107. Thank you, Holy One. After confirming Luo Qingtong's identity, the Holy Emperor of the Empire of Qin's face turned cold. He said in a low voice, "You promised to let her go if you can't produce evidence. I was the witness and heard it with my own ears. I'm afraid I can't let you do anything to her." The Holy Princess of the Chu dynasty had a very high status. Moreover, the title of Holy Princess was personally conferred by the Chu dynasty's transcendent sage. Although the Holy Emperor of the Empire of Qin did not want to offend the Celestial Palace, he did not want to offend the Chu dynasty either. He was the witness of this matter. If he allowed Elder Xie to do anything to Luo Qingtong, he would not be able to answer to the Chu dynasty. Is that so? Elder Xie sneered. He looked at Ma Chunyi and the Grand Supreme Dean, who heaved a sigh of relief. Then he raised his hand and sucked. Swoosh. Standing behind Elder Xie, Su Deheng and Shen Shuyue, who were full of joy and pride because of his actions, were sucked into his hands. Pa! Elder Xie's hands suddenly clasped their necks tightly. Elder Xie. Su Deheng and Shen Shuyue did not expect Elder Xie to do anything to them. They looked at Elder Xie, who was holding them in his hands in horror, as they struggled to break free. However, Elder Xie was a transcendent sage. How could they break free? If they had been prepared when Elder Xie attacked, they might have been able to escape. But now, no matter how hard they struggled, they could not escape from Elder Xie's hands. The latter continued to tighten his grip on their necks. That promise wasn't made by this elder. Since the Holy Emperor wants an explanation, then I'll kill them and give you an explanation. But I must do something to Luo Qingtong. Whoever dares to stop me will be going against the Celestial Palace. I hope you know what's best for you, Sacred Emperor." As Elder Xie spoke, he clenched his fists and broke the necks of Su Deheng and Shen Shuyue. The two of them didn't even make a sound before they died with their eyes wide open. Before he died, his eyes were filled with disbelief. They had never thought that the two of them would be the ones to die, after setting up a trap to deal with Luo Qingtong. Bang! Elder Xie waved his hand heavily. With a loud bang, the bodies of Su Deheng and Shen Shuyue were smashed to the ground. "Can I make a move on her now?" Elder Xie said with a sinister smile on his face. "Get out of my way. Anyone who stands in my way will die." His voice was cold and harsh. With a bang, the aura around him instantly turned into a whirlwind and rushed towards Luo Qingtong. From the whirlwind, a pitch-black hand suddenly reached out and grabbed Luo Qingtong. "Come over here." Elder Xie's voice was cold but full of confidence. As a sage transcendence, he couldn't make any mistakes. The other party was only a martial emperor. "Qingtong, run." At this moment, the Grand Dean stood in front of Luo Qingtong. Ma Chunyi had already been pulled away by the commander of the Imperial Guards. The Holy Emperor of the Empire of Qin would never allow his most outstanding son to risk his life. Elder Xie's movements were ruthless. With a loud bang, he struck the Grand Dean. Boom! Their attacks collided in an instant. Chapter 1108. Bang! In the main city of the Black Field of the Empire of Qin, a spirit ship crashed heavily into the anti-airspace barrier above the main city of the Black Field. Before the strong fighters guarding the Black Field on the city walls could shout, a series of urgent voices could be heard from the ship. Quickly bring us to see the city lord. Evil Dr. Guitong is in danger. A group of figures dashed out of the ship. It was Su Xiaoxiao and the others. At this moment, they looked anxious and rushed directly to the strong fighters guarding the Black Field on the city walls of the Black Field. What? Hearing their words, the strong fighters guarding the city walls of the Black Field were shocked. Then, someone immediately flew in front of Su Xiaoxiao and the others. Come with us. As they spoke, each of them took one person, and with a swoosh, the group of people disappeared from the city walls of the Black Region capital. The city lord's residence in the main city of the Black Field. Beiqing was listening to the reports of his subordinates. His mind was about to be tied up after hearing the things that the other party said. He kept dozing off. He really didn't know what his master was thinking. He brought Feng Yu out to test his strength, and left him alone in the main city to deal with things. Shouldn't he be the one to look for a fight? Why did he look for Feng Yu, who looked calm and elegant, but was actually sinister and full of evil tricks? This kind of messy matter was suitable for him to deal with. Beiqing felt a headache coming on. After the city lord of the Black Field reported another power dispute in the main city of the Black Field, he slammed the table and shouted angrily, "Tell them, if there are any disputes in the future, no matter what the reason is, we'll beat them up first. After they calm down, we'll let them deal with it themselves. Hurry up and do it." Beiqing waved his hand impatiently. What the F***ck is going on? To Beiqing, there was nothing that couldn't be solved with a fight. If that didn't work, then they would fight. Let's see who dares to bother him with such trivial matters. The Blackfield City Lord's face twitched when he heard the Right Protector's words. He was just about to say something when suddenly, a clamor sounded from outside. The group of Blackfield guards appeared in front of him, and Beiqing with Su Xiaoxiao and the others. City Lord, Right Protector. They claimed to be Lord Ghost Eye's followers, saying that Lord Ghost Eye is in danger in the Empire of Qin, and they are asking for our help. Before the group of Blackfield guards could finish their words, Beiqing had already recognized Su Xiaoxiao and the others. In a flash, she appeared in front of them and grabbed Yuan Hu, who was at the front, and asked, "What's going on? What are you talking about?" Beiqing had been with Yi Qianxian for a long time, so he naturally knew where Su Xiaoxiao and the others were with Luo Qingtong. Seeing them appear in the Blackfield sub-city, Beiqing's heart sank. People from Celestial Palace came to the Empire of Qin to make trouble for our boss, saying that she stole their treasure. Our boss has been taken to the Empire of Qin's Imperial Palace. Hurry up and save her. That Elder Xia from the Celestial Palace is a transcendent saint. Our boss can't defeat him. Su Xiaoxiao, Yuan Hu, and the others quickly told Beiqing what had happened, and they were so anxious that their eyes turned red. Bastard! Beiqing's face fell when he heard this. Summon all the experts of the Saint Realm in the Black Field, and follow me to the holy capital of the Empire of Qin. Master is now testing his strength with Feng Yu in that place, and I don't know if he can sense the danger of the evil doctor. Chapter 1109. Bang! In the conference hall of the Imperial Palace of the Empire of Qin, the power of the Grand Supreme Dean and Elder Xia clashed fiercely in mid-air. Rumble! A series of explosions rang out. From the place where the two attacks collided, countless cracks spread out in an instant. Waves of energy spread out from the center of their attacks, and spread out in all directions with terrifying power. The conference hall was the place where the Emperor of the Empire of Qin usually dealt with urgent matters. Usually, when things got urgent, it was possible for the ministers to quarrel and fight with each other. Under such circumstances, the materials used to build it were all top-notch. The power of an ordinary saint would not be able to shake it at all. However, at this moment, this magnificent hall was shaking violently under the attacks of the Grand Supreme Dean and Elder Xia. Cracks spread out on the pillars of the hall, forming a spiderweb-like pattern. The entire main hall was emitting teeth-numbing creaking sounds under that powerful attack. A battle between experts who had surpassed the Saint Realm was so terrifying. Under the barrage of attacks, many of the internal guards were sent flying out of the hall. Screams of agony rang out. "Your Majesty, leave quickly!" The internal guards of the imperial house hurriedly escorted the Emperor of the Empire of Qin away. Ma Qingyi wanted to stay, but the Emperor of the Empire of Qin ordered Grand Tutor Jiang to drag him out by force. In an instant the hall was empty. Only Luo Qingtong, the Grand Supreme Dean, and Elder Xie were left. "Humph! How dare you compete with the light of the sun and the moon?" Elder Xie sneered. He did not take the Grand Supreme Dean seriously at all. He was merely someone who had surpassed the Saint Realm. In the eyes of ordinary people, he was a rare expert. However, in front of him he was nothing. If he was not a saint, so what if his strength was above the Saint Realm? It was just a matter of a few more moves. Thinking of this, he immediately increased the intensity of his attacks. Boom! The Grand Supreme Dean was barely able to take one of his moves. He was injured internally, and could not use his full strength. Moreover, Elder Xie's strength was above his. As the strength of the opponent's attack increased, the Grand Supreme Dean immediately felt his own strength being suppressed. An extremely violent force was constantly suppressing him from Elder Xie's side. Knowing that he couldn't hold on for much longer, the Grand Principal gritted his teeth and raised his hand to push Luo Qingtong out. "Little child of the evil doctor, leave now." The Grand Principal absolutely could not let anything happen to Luo Qingtong here. Otherwise, not to mention Yi Qianxian's anger, he would not be able to bear it. Even his conscience would feel uneasy for the rest of his life. He had promised that he would take good care of this little girl. Bang! Just as the Grand Principal raised his hand to push Luo Qingtong, his attack power was also dispersed by Elder Xie's attack. The latter's power was like a torrential river, sweeping over like raging waves. "You want to leave? Dream on. All of you stay here." Elder Xie's face was ferocious. His stay naturally referred to the Grand Dean's life and Luo Qingtong's people. Rumble! In midair, Elder Xie's power swept over like a violent storm. The spiritual energy giant hand, which was as tall as several people, fiercely grabbed at Luo Qingtong and the Grand Supreme Dean. "Go!" The Grand Supreme Dean's hand was about to slap Luo Qingtong's body and send her out. Chapter 11:10. The young girl held his hand. Grand Principal. Luo Qingtong didn't even look at the raging waves of energy behind the Grand Principal that were as tall as several people. The large hand made of spiritual energy that had been standing on top of the mountain for a long time didn't attract the slightest bit of her attention. "Do you still remember what I said to you when we first met?" The young girl looked at him, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. Evil, domineering, enchanting, confident. Evil Dr. Doll. The Grand Principal's hand was grabbed by Luo Qingtong. He felt the raging waves of energy coming from behind him, and his heart instantly burned with anxiety. "Oh my God! What kind of situation is this? You doll, don't reminisce about old times. If you continue reminiscing about old times, the two of us will die." How could the Grand Principal not remember what Luo Qingtong said to him when they first met? It was this evil Dr. Doll who exposed his internal injuries. That was why he was itching to kidnap Luo Qingtong to the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. In the end, this little girl had given the heaven-grade student admission notice that he had given to the Sky Hall of the main courtyard directly to Chu Lingfeng, that blockhead. He had made himself happy for nothing. Later on, in order to persuade her to come to the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin, he had even sent out a bunch of purple-grade heaven-grade student admission notices. God knows how many times the Elders Guild had used this against him because of this matter. But now wasn't the time to talk about this. "Little doll, hurry up and leave." Feeling that the energy behind him was getting closer and closer, the Grand Principal couldn't care less anymore. Unable to break free from Luo Qingtong's hand, he could only directly push her away like this. However, before he could do anything, Luo Qingtong's voice rang out again. "At that time, I said that I couldn't treat your injuries. But now we can try. As Luo Qingtong spoke, the blood-red light in her eyes suddenly flickered. Ocular technique activate. With Luo Qingtong's current strength, it was impossible for her to completely heal the Grand Principal's injuries and eliminate the raging waves of energy in his body. But she could temporarily open up a path in the midst of those waves of energy, allowing the Grand Principal's energy to pass through. Under such circumstances, she could completely allow the Grand Principal to temporarily recover his strength and not be limited to the suppression of that one injury. Boom! Luo Qingtong's energy flowed through the wrist of the Grand Principal and blasted into his body. Follow me, Luo Qingtong's voice rang. Evil Dr. Baby. However, something that astonished him happened. Boom, boom, boom. Luo Qingtong's energy swept through the area where the raging waves of energy were swirling without any obstruction. Her energy accurately passed through the gaps in those waves of energy and passed through the area where the waves of energy were swirling without alarming those waves of energy. The Grand Principal, who was controlling the energy in his body, was stunned. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.